McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood back in front.
The scene, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm is erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald,
Oh boy, we really just have 3 rounds left of the AFL season. Everything is really coming down to the wire, whether it be finals hopes for some of these fringe teams, some teams trying to secure their spot in the top 4, or teams deciding to essentially fire their coach with a few rounds to go instead of just, riding out the season, seeing how things go, and then just giving him the pink slip at that. But nothing's ever straightforward, simple, easy to understand, digestible when it comes to the AFL season, especially having, 5 games just rescheduled a couple days before, or a day or two they're supposed to go on. So, a bit of a hectic round, but, that's just kind of the norm at this point in time. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the AFL Breakdown, brought to you by Fourth Long. Of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by the AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess. And Coach Hess, how are we feeling after just a draining almost round 20?
Oh, like I was telling you off mic, there's a 24-hour period from Friday night at about 9 o'clock until the next night that just all nuttiness happened. I was actually having a chat with another podcaster who has a podcast out of Ohio. And as we finished the podcast, all of the insanity of the Queensland lockdown and 3 games being canceled within about 10 minutes all happened as that podcast ended.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I'm
timing.
like literally looking at it going, OMG, what is gonna go on? And I'm like scrolling through every and I'm scrolling through Twitter trying to find every AFL media person.
Super late at night.
Yeah, I was like, there's media people that, like, the rumors had already started. Well, they're gonna try to get them all flown down to Victoria. They're gonna slide them into Sunday. There's gonna be a Super Sunday of 5 games now instead of 2, and it was gonna be absolute insanity. And I'm literally, as I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'm still looking at it. There's still kind of some trajectory and there's still kind of debate whether they're going to be able to get it all out. And then I saw plane flight, Essendon, Sydney, GWS, Brisbane, and somebody, and like all of the teams who were in Queensland, all of a sudden we're now going to get charter flights. They're all going to fly to Victoria, and they were pretty sure they were going to be able to get all the games done. So it was just in an absolutely insane about 8 hours. Then I had to sleep. Then I had our game here in Des Moines, and then basically got ready for 5 games the next day. So it was absolute insanity. It was 36 hours of absolute footy bliss. I couldn't have asked for better. It was a little scary there for 3 or 4 hours when I was thinking, oh no, a third of the games are not going to be played this week, and they're going to. Now there was talk of the pre-finals bye was going to be used to make up the games, and yeah, it was just ever flowing. So what an insane round of footy this week.
Right, I can only imagine it's probably extremely hard to keep up with this sport and everything going on when you're in Australia, let alone across the Pacific Ocean where all the time zones are shifted. It certainly is quite the challenge, but that's always one of the funnest parts, especially when we just happen to be the American voice of Australian football. That's the kind of stuff we got to deal with, but that's the kind of stuff that makes this fun. But of course, you know how this goes. We're going to break down everything you need to know for round 20. We're going to take an updated look at what the final 8 teams might look like. Donnie's going to give us his team of the round. We're going to get you our round 21 power rankings and tipping. So let's get into things, Donnie. The first game we had was actually a pretty solid Friday night game of footy with St. Kilda and Carlton. And this was I think this was Carlton's best game of the season. I really do. Because they finally, it's almost like they look. This is almost better than what we were expecting them to be preseason. They finally get their scoring up, their accuracy going. Of course, their defense was a little meh, giving up 81, but that's ultimately not the worst thing that could have happened. Definitely not the worst performance we've seen from them this season. And so that was a really good way to maybe wind down the year, especially St. Kilda. They won 3 in a row. Now they've lost 3 in a row. And both these teams, I guess mathematically, they're still in finals contention. But if we're actually looking at that, they're all but done, unfortunately. But this is just maybe one of those games where it's a good moral victory for Carlton. Maybe for David Teague, of course. I'm sure with the review they had, I'm sure their decision's already made up. They're just not trying to pull a Hawthorne on this one, quite frankly. But Harry Mackay, he adds to his lead for goals scored this season. He kicks 5 and 2. He now has 57 goals on the year, 9 ahead of Taylor Walker with 3 games left to go. He's almost a lock to win, or lock to have the most goals kicked this season. And also, of course, he had soon-to-be superstar, already a star, Sam Walsh. He tallies another 3 goals in this one and just continues his really fantastic last recent stretch of games. And, the season's over. Kind of like I said, the season might be over for either team, but, man, this is still a really entertaining game of footy.
I don't know if we can, I hate even saying it, but I don't know if we can really count either of these two out. The only thing that I think really kills St. Kilda at this point is their percentage. Their percentage is putrid. It's the worst of the teams sitting at 32 points. There's 4 teams sitting there: Essendon, Richmond, Carlton, St. Kilda. So technically, these are the 2 at the bottom. They're both not out, but it's definitely gonna take a lot to be able to do it. You're gonna have to hope Essendon and Richmond at least stumble at least once more. You're gonna have to win at least twice to get in, because right now you're 4 points back of 8th place with GWS with that half a game lead on you at 34. So they're not out of it, but it's definitely gonna take winning at least 2, if not all 3 of these last 3 games and getting a little bit of help. Now, the way this season has gone, there's a good potential it could happen, because everything from 7th down cannot make up their minds what type of footy teams they want to be right now. They have had chances to put themselves in the 8 and staple themselves into the final, and they have literally just shanked it every single time. So I'm rather fascinated that Carlton has the best road home. St. Kilda has the worst percentage. St. Kilda has a massive game with Sydney this week, so there's still tons that can happen. But man, did Carlton they can't make up their minds if they want to save Teague or if they want Teague gone at this point.
Yeah. He's also not really doing himself any favors at this point, too, because, one game it looks like, yeah, he's surely going to get canned at the end of the season. And then another game it looks like, oh, yeah, they should sign him to a 4-year contract. It's like this whole Carlton team, David Teague included, man, it's just really hard to make up their mind at this point. Almost like, I guess maybe even Collingwood here. But, of course, we'll get to them here soon enough. But now let's move on. Let's take a look at the Bulldogs and Adelaide game. And this was, if you're a Western Bulldogs fan, this was a really, I think, a positive game to see from this Doggies team, because they've now won 3 straight since losing that big game to the Swans. And especially coming off the last round, they beat Melbourne. They continued that hot streak going. And it was competitive a little bit in the first quarter, but then the Doggies totally stormed away with the lead in this one. And this is a good game to see, kind of like I was saying, in the lead up to the finals, because the Doggies are obviously a finals team. They're just about a lock for a top 4 team as well. So, and really what you're looking for right now at the last few games of the season is almost like tuning up, making sure you're right at the finals with a good amount of momentum, and you're feeling confident in the game of footy that you're playing. And this was a good way to do that, because they beat a team that they should have beaten. They almost exceeded expectations, honestly. And what was nice is that you didn't pull Adelaide in this one. You didn't just have one guy kicking all the goals if you want to be successful. They had a bunch of 1-goal scorers, and then they had 3 2-goal scorers. The scoring was spread out. They played good defense, which is something that they've been kind of lacking in the recent rounds, especially holding Taylor Walker to only 2 goals in this one as well. So this is a really positive game from them, and I like the kind of momentum that they're carrying on potentially into these last 3 games of the season.
This is one of those where I think the doggies are kind of hitting cruise control. They really didn't have to get out of second gear too much to beat this Crows team. I'm I'm not sure if the Crows are progressing or just stagnant right now. It's a really weird club right now for me to kind of gauge. But the fact that the doggies are doing this and they haven't had Josh Dunkley, they haven't had Trelaw. Keith went down with his hamstring injury. The scary part about this doggies team is they're not full strength and they're still doing this to other teams. So they're hitting their stride at the right time. 3 games to go, a couple of difficult ones in this last run to go. But if I'm the doggies, there's got to be a ton of confidence in every single one of the members of their lists because they just look so good right now that they're very quickly becoming the flag favorite, and I think supplanting themselves past Melbourne at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously they've really picked it up, and they're going to be a hot team. They might be the hottest team in the league. It might honestly be between them and the Swans is the hottest team in the league going into the finals. So it's going to be a fun kind of, I guess, quasi race between those 2 teams heading in over these last 3 rounds. And then one of those teams that's going to be near the top or possibly at the top is Geelong, and they had a survival game against the North Melbourne Roos, and I swear we've been saying this most of the season now, and it's been especially prevalent over the last couple of rounds, is that you cannot sleep on this North Melbourne team because they kind of took it to the Cats early on. And they kind of showed up, hey man, we're obviously they're just not a team. They're not a team that's just going to roll over. I mean, Geelong was a heavy favorite in this one, and they should be because they are one of the top flag contenders, and North Melbourne's there at the bottom of the league. But I don't know. I wasn't really surprised by this, though, is the thing too, because I mean, North Melbourne had a lead going to about halfway through the second. Eventually, you do see Geelong start to play a little bit better. They kick a few goals in a row, and they eventually get out to lead that they're able to maintain the rest of the way through. But this was not a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination for the Cats, especially kicking 8 and 14 in this one. That's not great. And those 2 guys, especially with Jeremy Cameron still being out, the 2 guys that look like they're going to have to carry you like they did last year. It looks like it's going to be the same thing this year with Dangerfield and Hawkins. North Melbourne isn't that. I mean, they play solid defense, but they're not a finals level team when it comes to defense, which isn't a knock on them. That's just, I mean, they're there. They're just not there yet. But Dangerfield scoreless, Hawkins 1-1. That's not a good look. You don't have a guy that breaks 2 goals in this one, and I don't know if we're necessarily worried long term by this performance, but it's not a good look, especially when you're trying to compete with the Western Bulldogs for that top spot. I mean, to be honest, so we did talk about last round. You did bring up a great point that they might not want that top spot anyway. Go ahead and check that out if you didn't hear that stat that Donnie dropped. But this was not the best round to have.
This is one of those where I don't know. North Melbourne has just really stapled themselves into we're not going to give you an easy game. You are going to have to earn your wins over us. But this was, I would chalk this more down to Geelong getting a win in a game they didn't play their best. And if you look at it, the obvious thing that stuck out of me in this game is the behinds for Geelong. 14 behinds. If they kick straight in that third quarter where they go 1-5, if they switch that and go 5-1, this game is a complete blowout and it's not even close. This is almost one of those where North Melbourne almost has to thank their lucky stars, because this could have been a lot uglier than it was. It's Geelong kept them in the game by kicking behinds. So I don't know if I would sit here and go, is Geelong, should we start questioning Geelong? I think this was just one of those. North Melbourne has really taken this workman-like, tough, gritty style of footy, and it didn't it really did kind of stifle North Melbourne a little bit. I think if Cameron is there, if Mitch, if Duncan is there, I think this is a little bit of a different game. If I'm being completely honest with you, this is one of those games where those players not being in the lineup, I think, are glaring openings in this roster, that they don't have that secondary and that third goal kicking option after Hawkins. I mean, Rowan does his best, but Rowan does have days where he's absolutely disappears. He didn't have too bad a game in this one, but it is kind of one of those where I think the Cats will thank their lucky stars. They took North Melbourne's best shot. They get the win. It may be ugly, but sometimes you got to win those games ugly. Sometimes this is a character builder, both for North Melbourne and for Geelong, because they got through a tough game that I don't think they were completely expecting, but they still got through the adversity that was given to them.
It's almost funny. Yeah, you're right. It didn't look like they were expecting this, but that's almost on you at this point, because if you see the Roos on your schedule, you should expect almost like a finals like atmosphere in terms of toughness and competitiveness. This isn't a bad team to face for maybe some of these finals teams going in to the over these last few rounds, because it could be almost like a solid tune-up game where it's a game that you should win, but it's also when you're going to be tested, especially one of these top four teams. So, I'm really excited for what the Roos are going to bring this offseason, this free agency, this draft, and they have a lot of potential for next season. And so this is a potentially huge offseason that they're looking forward to. And I'm super excited to see how we might be talking about them once we get to our 2022 season preview, which is obviously a little bit away, but that's something that you're going to have to pay attention to. Also, something else you're going to pay attention to is possibly West Coast is another. I mean, we had a collapse in them, then they kind of caught themselves. Now they're in the middle of another collapse. So how many times can we say that a team is collapsing in this season? It's West Coast is really pushing the boundaries of how we could describe this, because it's another game where you see West Coast leave the confines of the, a little bit of home cooking, and they look bad. There's no way to sugarcoat this. There's no other way to really phrase it. They just look bad, and Collingwood puts a bit of a hurting on them as their inconsistent play just continues. And honestly, this game was a lot closer. The final score was a lot closer than they should have been, because after 3, going to the fourth term, it was 70-19, and the Eagles kicked 4 and 2 in the fourth to make it look like not as much of ass kicking, but this was still a thorough ass kicking by the Collingwood Magpies, and there is no way that the Eagles can stay in the top 8 if they continue to play like this, especially with the competitiveness that we're seeing around that 8 spot. And right now they're ahead of ahead of Freeway 8 by 4 points, and they're ahead of GWS 9 by 6 points. And the end of the season is nothing short of brutal, to be quite honest, because we're playing their last 3 games are against the D's, the Dockers, and the Lions. And of course, I mean, the D's, that's obviously a really tough game. Freo, it depends on what kind of Freo team you get. And Brisbane, to be honest, they've actually been not looking great recently, especially without Hipwood. Of course, we'll talk about the Brisbane Lions specifically when we get to that game later in this round. But there's a good chance that West Coast could finish this season 0-3 and not even come close to making the finals.
Yeah, this was just an absolutely horrendous performance. And the person that I feel the most horrible for is Shannon Hearn, because he breaks the record for most games played for a West Coast Eagles, and his teammates serve that up. I mean, absolutely disgusting performance. Um, I agree with what one of the, some of the Fox Footy broadcasters. He goes, everybody in that locker room should walk up to Shannon Hearn and apologize for that performance because that was absolutely just disastrous for them. The questions are back again. Can West Coast win outside the borders of Western Australia? And this just continues to be an issue. And as you said, it doesn't get any easier this round. Now they got to go back to Perth and they play the Melbourne Demons, but it's like, what West Coast are we going to get in Perth this weekend? This upcoming week, are we going to get the Perth? Are we going to get the Eagles that play in Perth that play really, really well? Are they going to put a scare into Melbourne, or are they going to absolutely capitulate, fall apart, and go into that Western Derby with a chance of literally falling out of the 8 in the span of 2 weeks? So I don't know. I'm all due respect. Collingwood just literally made them look like fools. I'm not going to completely heap on West Coast. I got to give Collingwood some credit.
They
Coach Harvey has really opened this team up. They haven't got all the W's that I think they've probably deserved. Great seeing Jeremy Howe back. I'm hoping he's back to 100%. He's always an excitement machine with his marking abilities. I think this is the Collingwood team that they're going into the off season just hoping that they can kind of survive through this, all of this insanity, get the Dacos kid for father son, and hope they can make a few moves in the trade period to reduce their cap issues to the point where they can go into next season with a legitimate shot of fighting back up the ladder and potentially getting back into finals contention. I don't think it's next year, but I think bringing in the next Dacos and having another superstar talent in the black and white, I think is going to be a progression. I don't see them in the bottom part of the ladder next year, but I don't know who's going to be at the helm, and I don't know how their board's going to look. So I could be completely off. We could be seeing a team that finishes 16th this year and 18th next year. We'll really have to see.
And other teams with a potentially, pivotal offseason to the, as the kind of way it pertain to the direction in the future for this team. It's like you really hit the nail on the head there, Donnie. Either they could be good next year, they could be finals contenders, or they could also be contending for the wooden spoon. Quite the drastic difference we could see from them. Obviously, it's going to be something that we're going to be paying plenty of attention to over these next coming months. Another team that's very likely, if not guaranteed already, going to have a coaching vacancy is this Gold Coast Suns team. And they took on Melbourne, and they looked, to be honest, I mean, we saw the D's get to a good lead. Then we saw the Gold Coast Suns kind of come storming back and get the game close. I was like, oh, are we actually going to have a game on our hands? But no, it's essentially those the first term points is really all we got from the Suns team, because they make it close, and then the D score, they just kick 13 consecutive goals and kind of run away with this game, and it really wasn't good at all. Unless you like watching lopsided offensive footy, you just had to suffer through this game. Or if you're a Melbourne Demons fan, because obviously this is going to be good. This is just a brutal game. The Suns kick one behind over the length of the second and third term. That's not good. That's obviously not going to get anywhere near getting the job done. But this is a really good, I guess, game for Melbourne here, because they bounced back after the loss to the Doggies, and this is a team with offensive struggles as of late, and so. Hey, what better way to kind of get your offense going than to have this abysmal Gold Coast Suns defense to go against? You get to put up 120 points, and this is a game where you kick 20 behinds. 20 behinds. Imagine if they just put half of those through the middle. This game is even worse. I didn't even think that was possible. This game could be a whole... It could have been a whole hell of a lot worse for these Suns, but it's great for the Demons, because you got guys like Ben Brown and Luke Jackson both kicking 4 goals. Clayton Oliver with another 30-plus disposal game. He is going to be huge. And when it comes to the finals, it comes to ball movement. He has 35 in this one. Also, Max Gawn, he had real sick banana goal late in the game, which was honestly a really good banana goal all around. That was a sharp angle, and man, that was just a beauty of one. But how sold are you on this Melbourne team going to the last 3 games? They have West Coast, Adelaide, and Geelong left. How do you think the rest of the season plays out with them, and what do you think about this game?
Well, you're really hoping that this blowout is their circuit breaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's their okay. We're back to what we need to know. We've got all the confidence into our guys. We took a lower opponent and we dismantled them. Again, as you said, it could have been worse if they would have kicked straight. Unfortunately, 20 behinds is not always something that you want to sit here and clap your hands for. But that's nitpicking on my end. I think honestly, the game that's going to tell me whether this Melbourne Demons team is focused and ready for the finals is this game this week against the West Coast Eagles. You were literally facing a team that everybody has been absolutely smacking from pillar to post for the last 4 days, and will continue until you take the field Monday morning / Monday night in Australia. If Melbourne comes out and hands West Coast Eagles their rear end on a silver platter, I think Melbourne is back. And I think if I'm the Doggies, I'm the Cats, I'm the Lions, I'm Port, I'm Sydney, I'm a little worried because this is not the team that you want hitting its stride going into the finals. If they drop one to the West Coast Eagles, then if I'm the D's fans, I'm a little concerned that this ship may, and like I said last week, it may have peaked a few weeks early. And they maybe are starting to have their kind of wobbly part of their season at the worst possible time when it could potentially cost you a top 4 and potentially cost you a flag. So this is a game I go, okay, this is a confidence booster. It's a percentage booster. Mm-hmm. That's great. But this needs to translate to a better performance against the West Coast Eagles this week, or it is only a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
That's a really good way of putting it. Honestly, that's damn near perfect there, Donnie. Really earning your money, you earn your paycheck with this one, with those. What we call them, metaphor? I don't know. I totally
analogies, metaphors. So many different ways you could go with that. So
you know what I'm talking about. So it's all good. And the next game we had was Hawthorn and Brisbane, and would you believe it? Hawthorn pulls off another upset as they edge out the Lions by 12 in actually a really fun game in this one. They've now beaten Brisbane, Sydney, and have gone a draw against Melbourne. So kind of like this North Melbourne team, the 2 bottom teams in the league you cannot sleep on, because as soon as you do that, you'll lose or at least draw against these guys. And this was just so funny. And they led Brisbane just about the entire game in this one. And one of my favorite things is obviously Hawthorn is, even with how close this, the 8th spot is and 7th spot is, they're nowhere near that. They've been out of the finals for a number of rounds now. But I still love that this team isn't really playing for anything besides trying to ruin other teams' seasons. And that's almost a fun position to be in at this point. And they have a chance, actually, to possibly kick the Doggies out of the 1 spot, and they can even make sure that the Richmond doesn't make the finals this year, so they can play spoiler for a couple of big teams here. And one of the things you gotta look out for on the other side of the footy is that Brisbane is now 1-3 since losing Hippelwood. They've dropped down to 6. They were a top 4 team. That's not even looking promising anymore. It looks like top 4 hopes might be all but dead at this point too, which is almost crazy if you look at the ladder. Right now, Brisbane is at 6 at 48 points. Port Adelaide's at 56. Then it goes 58, 60, 60. So they're at least a couple games out of the top 4 with 3 to go. It's not looking great for those Brisbane fans, and this Hipwood injury is just looking awful. And you got all this in this game. I'm not even addressing the elephant in the room here, Donnie. So would you like to get to that and then also tell us your thoughts about this one?
Oh, as I was saying, Friday night, just so much insanity. Friday morning our time, I was looking, I went on Twitter, I was chatting with a friend, and all of a sudden, every single tweet from every single Australian person I was following, oh my gosh, Clarko's gone. Why are they treating Clarko like this? I'm like, what are they talking about? So I click over to the AFL app. Clarko is done at the end of the season. Him and Hawks are parting ways, and I went, wow. Okay, that's a massive story because you had all the drama with Caroline Wilson, and you had all the drama with Mitchell, and did Mitchell say this, then Mitchell denies it, and then Clarkson comes out with this fiery speech about how he's going to stay through the end of his contract. He's a man of his word. He's going to honor his contract. He's going to be through this year and next year. And just for 72 hours, it went from everybody talking about it to this bombshell dropped. And it was absolutely insane. And I think, honestly, I think this performance by Hawthorne was the weight lifted off their shoulders. All the drama was done. There was no more talk of what's going on. Is Mitchell going to be the coach next year? Is Clarkson going to be the coach next year? Or is Clarkson going to coach through the rest of this year? And then is he going to leave? Is he going to be a sabbatical? Are Hawthorne going to pay him out? There's so many storylines, and this just kind of put it all to bed. Clarkson's done at the end of the year. Mitchell's taking over, but done. I mean, it not flashy, not very good in my personal opinion. I think honestly, as I've stated numerous times, Clarkson is without a doubt one of the best coaches of the last 30 years. 4 flags. I mean, that's just proof there. But it's such an anticlimactic ending. With very little, I think there's going to be very little fanfare on this. I think Hawthorne kind of wants to proverbially wash their hands of him, and it's kind of sad, but it does throw up. And I'm very interested as a new footy fan. I mean, I've told you kind of everything about Clarko, and like I said, you haven't seen the brilliance of his 3 flags in a row with 13, 14, 15.
Yep.
But we have these potentials. Collingwood is not probably going to have Harvey, so Collingwood's job's open. There's talk of Gold Coast job potentially being open after this season, especially with some of the putrid performances that have happened. And then still the potential with a few things going certain ways, the Carlton could be open. If I'm going to put you in Alastair Clarkson's shoes right now, you have 4 options. Take a year off and still get paid $900,000. Get your senior in high school done. You don't have to worry about coaching footy. You get 12 months without any pressure. Go up to Gold Coast and try to solidify your greatness by taking Gold Coast from the cellar dwellers to potentially a finals team, and maybe, who knows, even a flag. Take the Carlton job if David Teague gets over with a list that has tons of talent, just it's been directionless. Or do you take the Collingwood job knowing that it's at least a 2-year rebuild before you're even going to potentially look at maybe the finals?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you take a look at here, the best spot, and I mean the spot that's likely going to lead to the most success, I think it's very clearly that Carlton spot. You know, presumably taking over for David Teague, that's probably going to be let go at the end of this season. Because, like you said, they have all this talent in the world. They have some games, like especially around 20, where they're actually able to put everything together and look like a damn good team. So, if you're going to coach, you go to Carlton if you can, because Clarkson. He's a phenomenal coach. He's probably in terms of a guy that can maybe right maybe right the wrongs of a team, maybe kind of bring up a sinking ship. He's probably your guy in terms of available coaches here. But I kind of like your idea of going on up to Gold Coast and maybe just finally solidifying and being that anchor to the struggling franchise, to one that hasn't never really found their footing in all the years that they've been, the few years relatively, but all the years that they've been a club. So that would be a really fun job, or a really fun task to take up, but ultimately, I would be excited, because, you guys all know that I'm kind of a sucker for Gold Coast for whatever reason. I kind of just enjoy them. I think Carlton. Carlton would be the best spot here, and I really think Clarkson 1 year with the current roster with Carlton. They're a finals team. They're a finals team with him. I think he's the guy that can bring it together. So that would be honestly a really exciting move to see this offseason.
Yeah, I could see that, but for me, honestly, I want to see if he can prove his greatness. I want to see him up at Gold Coast. Like I almost want to see the AFL find a way to get him up to Gold Coast, just because
Gold Coast, a couple first
I
rounders.
well, it's like I want to see it. I want to see, can he prove himself in a different situation. I mean, he did it at Hawthorne. He got two drafts in a row where he gets Hodge, he gets Buddy Franklin, he gets some of these superstars that were part of the dynasty that was Hawthorne. And now he's got a chance to do it again. I mean, think about having Clarko coaching Matty Rowell, Isaac Rankin, Lukosius, Anderson, King, all of that talent with what many people say the greatest coach in the modern era. It's very tantalizing to see. Again, I love Stewie Doo. I think Stewie Doo's been a great coach. I think just the issue is that I almost think an awe-inspiring coach like Clarkson up in Gold Coast would be perfect. But like I said, there's still tons to see. My gut feeling tells me I think the Carlton or Collingwood job are most likely, because of the fact he's got a senior in high school, and I don't think he wants to be away from them in their senior year being up in the Gold Coast. So we'll have to see. Now, to kind of rewind back to the Hawthorn Brisbane game, this game is just odd in all ways, because if you look at the final score, you're thinking, well, Hawthorn edged out a tough, hard victory. No, they did. Literally, Hawthorn was literally kicking the living you-know-what out of Brisbane for most of this game. And in the fourth quarter, Hawthorn went, I think we're done. And Brisbane come
Well, their
roaring
foot
back.
got tired, man. If you kick someone that much, it's going to just hurt after a while.
Exactly. But Brisbane comes flying back in the fourth quarter, gets it to the point where there was a little bit with about 3 minutes left. I was going, oh my gosh, Brisbane's got a chance to pull this out of a body cavity. My gosh, I could not believe what I was seeing. Now, Hawthorn gets a late goal, kind of stems that, and I think that really kind of put the game away. But this is one of those, such a misleading score, because it was not this close for most of the game. Like, you go into the fourth quarter, it was almost a 60-point lead. And Brisbane comes again, pardon the pun, roaring back in the fourth quarter to absolutely take this game from obscurity to, I mean, so much better looking on the stat sheet than it probably should have been.
And the only way that you could justify maybe positive in this game for Brisbane is that they got to where they didn't take that much of a hit in their percentage points, but it really was just a bad loss all around in this one. But the next game, I'm super excited to talk about this next game, because it was hands down match of the round. This was an extremely exciting game. This was finals atmosphere, and this might have been one of my favorite games of the season, to be quite honest, between Essendon and Sydney, because the Swans barely outkicked the Dons in this one in just an absolute shootout in in any definition of the word. This was a shootout, and this was so much fun to watch. And then it was a little bit of a back and forth one. We saw it was a solid second half that kind of propelled the Swans to victory here, because Essendon carried a 12-point lead going to halftime. Nothing bad there. But then you see the Swans, they come out fast. They kick three of the first four second half goals in this one. And Donnie, I might sound like a broken record, but Tom Papley kicks 4 in this one. Okay, I swear that I should just be used to this. 4-1, 17 disposals. This guy, I think the only thing stopping me from actually committing to the statement is how good and how legendary Buddy Franklin is. But there's a bit of me, and actually a decent portion of me, that actually thinks that in terms of their long-term finals run and running the flag, Tom Papley might be the most important piece on this team.
Oh, that's a big call there. Actually, I this was just an absolutely insane game. I
Yeah.
remember keeping track with a friend of mine who I interviewed as my Essendon supporter, Rosanna. Um, we were back and forth, and we were just absolutely stunned at this game. The first half was very argy bargy, very arm wrestle, very tough, hard nose. But the second half, it was like both coaches went, you know what, forget it, let's just go for it. And they stopped playing defense, and it was just became a goal fest. Sydney kicks a goal, Essendon kicks a goal, Sydney kicks a goal, Essendon. It's like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car. I mean, that's you get a goal, you get a goal, you get it.
It's so
literally
apparent if you look at the match timeline too. So
and that's
apparent.
the crazy thing. Like if you look at the score worm, it's all goals in the second half because neither team could miss. I mean, there was one point Papley kicks a goal. They go to the center, they get the draw. Draper knocks it down. Stringer gets the rebound, kicks a goal, comes in. Hickey wins the tap. Parker kicks it in. Papley kicks another goal, and it just that was kind of the way the second half was absolutely magnificent footy because both teams were playing really well. But for me, the end of this game is marred a little bit because did you see the monumental screw up that happened on the Essendon bench with 4 minutes to go?
Wasn't great, was it?
Are you kidding?
Oh.
I literally sat there when they showed that, and what compounds it more is that Dylan Shield, Archie Perkins, and Anthony McDonald, Tip, and Woody are all on the bench, and they were out of rotations with 4 minutes left.
That might be the game.
Kidding me?
Oh, that's the mismanagement that was almost irritating. I wanted the Swans to win.
I'm not going to go that it cost them the game, but it definitely could be a precursor for one of the reasons why they didn't win, because they didn't have fresh legs and playmakers on the field in a really crucial time of the game. So I'm almost like the game was absolutely magnificent, but for me, maybe it's my coaching background, it's marred a little bit because of the monumental, absolutely brain fade that the Essendon coaching staff and the bench pulled when with 4 minutes left you've got 3 superstars, game-changing players on your bench, and you can't get them on because you're out of rotations. Man, that was absolutely so hard to watch. McDonald, Tippenwoody, and Perkins looked absolutely shattered on the bench. I felt you just wanted to give him a cuddle. You just wanted to give him a cuddle because you felt so bad, because it's like you literally have to sit here for the next 4 minutes of the game time because you can't come on.
You just
and
got
everybody on the field is stuck. They can't come off. So it just, I don't know. And for me, I'm gonna push back just the tiniest bit. Papley is a great player, but Papley has disappeared in games, and Sydney has still won. I think honestly, if you canvass most Swans fans, who is the most important guy on the team, I think it's going to be Tom Hickey. If I'm being completely honest with you, because if Tom Hickey doesn't come in and do some of the things that he does, not only is he a pretty good ruckman, but he's a roving ruckman as well. When he gets on the ground, he can clear it. He can get the ball into the 50. When he went down, that's when they had their struggle period. That's when they lost a couple of their games, when they lost to GWS and Gold Coast. And when he's gone down, they haven't played as well. So Papley's a good player, but Papley can easily be replaced by a Wicks, by a Warner, by a Isaac Heaney who goes up forward. But Hickey, you can't really replace him. You don't really have somebody that's going to have his impact that he has. So again, Swans fan here, I'll put my rose-colored glasses on. If you ask us, Hickey is the guy that's the most important player on the Swans team right now. He stays healthy, the Swans will keep winning. He gets injured, a lot of Swans fans are going to be very, very nervous.
And I mean, that's really solid there. Can't say, at least, I mean, those 3 guys that we mentioned, Hickey, Papley, Buddy Franklin, and you throw in Isaac Heaney there. They're all, I mean, the core of the Sydney Swans team is just a boatload of fun to watch. I think the Sydney Swans might be the funnest team in the league to watch right now. And so, like I've been saying over the last rounds, I mean, it might be a little bit wrong given that I'm a GWS supporter. But I mean, I really enjoy watching this Swans team play, and I got room for them. Not only to prove me right, just because, but they're also one of those teams that's really easy to root for, at least in my opinion, and the opinion of actually a lot of the other AFL fan base. So it's a good team. And then they're also right there within striking distance of that top four too. And so we'll see in once we get to my updated finals look, can they be a top four team? I guess we'll just have to wait a little bit here. But 2 games left in the round. The second to last one is Fremantle and Richmond. And we go from this barn burner of a game to a game where we have 2 teams that look like they're trying to not play in the finals for the bulk of this one, because honestly, this Fremantle and Richmond game was hard to watch through most of it. This just was not the best of footy. I think it's safe to say it might have been one of the worst games of the round if I'm being really frank and brutal about this one. But you have the Freo Dockers. I mean, I don't mean to badmouth the Dockers on this one, or the fans at all, because, I mean, they deserve a win like this. They're still there. They are at the 8th spot. They are in the finals at this point, and they almost blew it, though. They almost pulled the GWS in this one, because they had a decent lead that got to about an 18-point lead at one point in the third. And then you see Richmond kind of take the ball and run with it in the fourth quarter. Almost getting on mid-momentum swing, kind of what we've seen recently, where they play a bad game, they got the momentum swing and use that swing to let them win. But although they kick the 3 goals, or like they kick a number of goals in a row, they take a 9-point lead in about halfway through the fourth term. Freo is able to take a breath. They're able to kick a couple goals. They're able to go up, and they're able to carry the lead throughout this one. And those Freo supporters avoid a bit of a scare in this one, and almost like I wasn't trying to say that Nat 5 was important last round, but I'm just saying I was kind of making the point where the loss of him might not prove to be fatal, and that showed a little bit here. I mean, no Nat 5, I wouldn't say no problem, but no disaster, which is good for them. And now, if you're looking at Richmond, I mean, after it looks like they might have used up all their energy in Jack Rywolt's 300th game, because they look fantastic in that one. They show up for Jack, but now their last 2 rounds have kind of been just bad, and they look low energy and almost sloppy. A really weird kind of Richmond team that we almost never see. So it looks like Richmond might be toasted at this point.
Oh man, this was a game that when it comes to quality of footy, if you compare this to the Essendon Swans game, this was not quality football. This was ugly. This was tough. This was gritty. But if you go by the pure excitement of this game, and again, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Maybe it was the gritty nature. I'm weird like that. I like gritty games like this. I love games that are within a goal. They're so much fun to watch, and having the fan support, like you can always tell a game atmosphere changes when you have those fans. There's absolutely no doubt about it. When you hear the scream of ball when a guy gets tackled and potentially a holding the ball call could happen, there's nothing better. This was a game, literally, the Dockers were buoyed by their home crowd. Richmond just didn't execute at the right time, and Freo gets the win. Freo's back in the 8. We'll see how long this lasts, because unfortunately the 8 has been a curse, and when you get 8th place, you lose the next round. That's just kind of the way it's been going these last few weeks. So we will really have to see how this goes. What a performance without Fife and without Walters. I Dockers fans, I feel so horrible, because I did not think this performance was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Not against Richmond, not in this situation after losing Fife to a horrible repeat of his shoulder injury, losing Walters to another hamstring that potentially have him out till finals at the earliest. I just did not see this performance. And Andrew and Brayshaw, Sarong, and this young core just pulled their boots up and said, let's go. And they got after the former premiers and they looked really good doing it. Those young boys in that middle are trying to build something, and it makes me just cross my fingers they can get Adam Chera to resign and stay in the West, because him and Brayshaw are an absolute nightmare combination for that Frio group. And then when you've got the old head, the Mr. Reliable, Dave Mundy in the center as well, this Frio team is tough. They are not going to go away. I'm almost looking forward to the Western Derby here in a couple weeks, because I think it's going to be a cracker that could be, can Frio stay in the finals at that point when they face the Eagles? And could that be the point when the Eagles get knocked out?
Ooh, when that brings some drama into it, I think that's going to be a fun one there. Obviously, one of those games that could be pivotal to either team's hopes at making the finals. But the last game of the round was GWS and Port Adelaide, and to be honest, this was a game that it went almost exactly as I was expecting to go. The Giants just aren't able to, consistently compete with these legit top 8 teams, let alone a top 4 team. And then Port hangs onto their top 4 spot with Sydney winning. They almost were able to overtake it, possibly, depending on percentage points and the whole shebang bang with all that fun stuff with tied points. But they're holding to their top 4 spot, and GWS actually took the lead momentarily in the third after being down nearly by 30. So to me, this is really the only redeeming part of the game as a GWS supporter, because they had, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of laid down and just kind of coasted to this one. Didn't look like they were going to win. I love the fight that this team showed. I really enjoyed that and enjoyed watching that. It's not like this GWS team quits, okay? They're not a team that will just stop playing game because it looks out of reach. It just gets to points where then the only problem is, they retake that lead, and then it's another one of the cases where they give up another lead. So it's almost just, when GWS gives me hope like this and then just kind of throws it away, it's something. But it's not like I'm not too unused to it. And it does help. One of the guys that, at least for Port Adelaide, that looks like he's going to be key to their finals run, their run at the flag, is going to be Charlie Dixon, of course. He kicks another 4 in this one. He's been looking great, throughout the season. And so he might be able to be one of those guys where he could lead Port Adelaide if they're in a close game. It might come down to him to kick a game-winning goal there, or if his team's in a slump, it might be up to him to be the little spark to the team when it comes to finals. So he's going to be a really interesting guy to watch to see how his season finishes out. Then if we take a look at the finals, obviously GWS still has a really good shot at making the finals. They're just 2 points out, and they have games against Geelong, Richmond, and Carlton. That Geelong one doesn't look winnable, but also we saw what happened to Geelong last round. Richmond and Carlton are 2 very winnable games. So if GWS can at least win 2 of these 3, they should be able to find their way into the finals. And now the power, kind of like I was talking about with Sydney, is that they have to fight to keep their top 4 spot. It is not guaranteed that they're going to be one of these teams. Sydney has almost a golden opportunity late in the season, especially since Power has games against Adelaide, which they actually got upsetted by earlier in the year. They have Carlton, which could surprise people, and then the Western Bulldogs to finish off the season. So the Port Adelaide might have to win out if they want to make the top 4 and hold on to their spot here.
This is one of those where Port Adelaide did what they needed to do. They get the win. GWS, they do have, again, that little half-game wild card is going to serve them well. But unfortunately, when I look at it, is both of these 2 teams are now have a little bit of a ringer run, because they both get Carlton. And right now, Carlton, again, we don't know what Carlton you're going to get. Are you going to get the Carlton that just literally smacked down the Saints? Because if so, these two teams are going to get a test against them. I can guarantee you that Carleton is going to push both of these two teams to the limit if they play the style of footy that they have been playing. I mean, I these they are in two completely different situations, but they are kind of mirror images in different spots of the ladder. Port Adelaide needs to win out to keep the pressure, to keep themselves in the four, knowing that Sydney's run home, most people are chalking up 3 wins, depending on who you talk to. Port, not so much. They've got a couple of games that a lot of people are looking at going, ooh, that could be a toughie. So we'll really have to see. When it comes to GWS, again, they hold their destiny in their own hands. They went out, they're in. Plain and simple. They went out, they're in. They drop one, you almost have to get a little bit of help because you just don't know how the other teams are going to do. I mean, maybe you get lucky. Maybe West Coast falls on their sword. They drop all 3 and they drop out because GWS wins 2-1. They jump up into 7th, and then Essendon, Carleton, Richmond, one of those two jumps into 3rd. We'll have to see. But this really is kind of one of those, if you look at it, GWS, this is a tough game, good opponent. Port Adelaide plays well, but they still have that out. They have 3 games left. They win 3, they're in. Plain and simple. It's tough because you have to win games, and that puts more pressure on the playing group. But we'll have to see. This game kind of scared me a tiny bit because did you see I guess Taranto or no Hopper get kicked in the face because he went for a full body smother and missed, and Amon, who was kicking the footy, accidentally shinned him right in the face.
Yeah, it didn't look like anything intentional there, of course, but
No.
never a pretty sight to see. Unintentional or not. So,
Yes, I agree.
that was a scary moment. That was a scary moment.
Yes. The best part is the reports that I've seen, he was up, he was conscious. I think he is out of the hospital again through concussion protocols. He will be out at least this week when it comes to it. So that's kind of a massive blow. That's another really solid midfielder for GWS. So we will have to see. I think I'm really hoping Toby Green has a bounce back. He kind of had a little bit of a struggle game in this one in one of his first games back, which is hard to see a really superstar player have a bad game like that when he goes 2-4 and kicks several behinds in a row that I think that could have changed the game for GWS at the time.
I guess what's nice is that at least shows that Toby Green, he gets back and he's putting 4 kicks on target at least for points. So it looks like it's not like he's a man that's going to come back timid and just try to solely work his way back into this game. He's going to be out there trying to make a statement is any time he's on the field and as soon as he gets on there, which is nice. I like that aggressive Toby Green. That aggressive Toby Green is when he's at his best. So maybe knock the rust off, get back going, and maybe they can make a little bit of a finals push. The only problem, though, they make that finals push, I'm not really sure if they can even contend. But I'd rather them make the finals than to not. At the end of the day, it'd be much better to see that as someone to root for in the postseason. Besides the Sydney Swans at this point. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the breakdown of all 9 games of round 20. And before we get to team of the round, just want to take a look at maybe some updated kind of projections of what, at least the ladder to me, might look like. And so, some changes have been made to the bottom of the list. I actually have, good news for your Frio fans. I think I actually have them making the finals now. With this last push and with the Eagles looking bad. Of course, we didn't get to our round 21 tipping in its entirety, but obviously it's going to be a tough game against the Brisbane Lions, but that is a very, very winnable game, especially with how these teams are looking right now. So could be a huge one to turn the tides. Obviously, that another game against the West Coast Eagles, that could be pivotal, and that is ultimately the winner of that game. The way I have it, Donnie, you could probably guess. I was playing after this round. I was spending a lot of time on the ladder predictor, trying to come up with all these different scenarios. I've done my pessimistic one, done my optimistic one, done my realistic one. So I have to have. I got all of these possibilities mapped out, but the Dockers, whoever wins that game is going to end up 7th or 10th. Is a very real possibility. And that also they finish the season with St. Kilda. St. Kilda looked great when we were first looking at this. Now they start to drop off. There is a legit shot that Frio might be able to win out these last 3 rounds. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. Then, of course, GWS, you can go 2-3, and it's still, I've been saying for the last couple rounds now, still that round 22 game with them in Richmond could very, very well, for either team, determine who makes the finals. But there's been a little bit of a change, though, because I'm way more worried about Richmond's last game of the season against the Hawthorn Hawks. If I'm a Richmond supporter, I am not looking forward to that game because this has the chance to make or break the season if the GWS game doesn't do it already. And then, I mean, good news for you, Donnie, I think, is that it's going to be splitting hairs on percentage points, but I actually have the Swans taking the 4th spot away from the Port Adelaide Power at this point. Given there's only estimates of the points you can do on the AFL, so obviously it's not going to be 100% accurate. But in my mock-up here, Donnie, they're both at 64 points. Port Adelaide is at 5 with 120.2. Sydney's at 4 with 120.3.
Oh boy, talk about razor thin margins there. Again, it's been kind of another crazy week for me when it comes to it. But I completely agree with you. Like, I'm honestly thinking this Western Derby potentially is the eliminator for the finals. And I have this weird feeling that Carlton may be our Smoky. Like, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe I'm taking too much from this St. Kilda win, but there's something about the way they're playing right now that makes me think they're a Smoky. Them and Essendon are the 2 teams that I think are the 8th place team. I think West Coast drops out. I think Freo comes in 7th, and I think it's either Essendon or Carlton. How it kind of comes out. Does Essendon push the Western Bulldogs this weekend? Do they get the 2 wins in the last 2 games of the season that I think a lot of people think that they should? Can Carlton go 3-0 and get a little bit of help? We'll really have to see how that goes. If you cross my arm right now, I think West Coast drops out. I think Freo jumps into 7th, and I think Essendon ends up 8th, with Carlton falling just short. I think I agree with you. I think Richmond has a lot of problems right now just because of the fact they've still got a GWS team that's still fighting for the finals, and you've got a Hawthorn team that's going to be playing for their coach last game of his Hawthorn career, shall I say, with a ton of emotion in that game. I don't want to be Richmond playing Hawthorn right now. So and unfortunately, I could potentially see the mighty Richmond Tigers falling just short of the finals this year.
I mean, not even just short. And unfortunately, like I just went through it again. And best case scenario for Carlton, I see them ending up in 9, tied, tied in points for 8. Missing out percentage points. So there's a lot that can happen there. Percentage points, done as for percentage points, are going to make and break top 4 spots and top 8 spots. I can almost guarantee that there is going to be a tie, and it's going to come down to percentage points. It's for whatever team doesn't make it, it's going to be heartbreaking.
It will make that final day. So many people are going to be scoreboard watching so bad. Like, it'll be really fascinating to see what games are the Sunday games, because the live ladder looks are going to be absolutely spectacular, because anytime it's going to change ladder positions, they're going to show it. They're going to talk about it. It literally, there was one year where it came down to a team needed to kick a goal so they could get just enough percentage to get into the 8th, and they didn't. So they lost out by like a percentage point because they didn't kick another goal late in the game. So that's how crazy that last day can be, is if you get a Freo, if you get an Essendon in one of those Sunday games where they've got to win by 18 to get into the finals, it's going to be fascinating to see the fan, if there are fans in the stands, how many people got their phones up looking at it, watching the other games that might be going on, just to see the live ladder on how things are going. So I'm super excited for round 23. I hate that the regular season will be over, but round 23 is going to be spectacular, because if this goes the way it is, this is going to come down to the last game, last minute, last kick
It's
when it comes to who is and who isn't in the finals.
it's going to be so damn good. But I think it's about that time, Donnie. It's time to unleash the round 20 team of the round. Let's see what you got for us.
Oh, speaking of so damn good, so many really good performances this round. Let's jump right into team of the round, round 20 defenders. And I can't keep this guy out. Western Bulldogs Caleb Daniels, 32 disposals, a goal, 3 intercept possessions, 5 score involvements, 5 marks, 5 clearances, 2 tackles, and 564 meters gained. We jump to Port Adelaide and Ryan Burton. 22 disposals, a behind, 6 interceptions, a goal assist, 3 score involvements, 9 marks, 5 tackles, and 528 meters gained. Collingwood's Jack Crisp is making himself quite comfy in my team of the week every week, it seems like. 36 disposals, 10 intercept marks, 5 score involvements, 9 marks, 2 clearances, 2 tackles, and 320 meters gained. Another guy that loves being on my team of the week, Geelong's Tom Stewart. 24 disposals, 8 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 3 score involvements, 13 marks, and 386 meters gained. We give Hawthorn some love, so I give one of their defenders some love. Hawthorn's Jack Scrimshaw. 25 disposals, 12 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, 8 marks, 2 tackles, and 339 meters gained. Rounding out the defenders, this man had a little bit of trouble last year when it came to a kebab and a strip club in Queensland, but has rebounded nicely in round 20
No.
as Richmond's Sydney Stack ends my defenders. 25 disposals, 12 intercept possessions, 4 score involvements, 10 marks, and 455 meters gained for Mr. Stack. Let's jump to the big man, the Ruck, and finally, Brody Grundy is not my starting Ruck. It is Melbourne's Max Gawn. 16
No
disposals,
way.
2 goals, a behind, 3 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 11 score involvements, 5 marks, 4 clearances, 31 hitouts, and 254 meters gained. We jump to the midfielders, and another gentleman that's finding himself rather comfy in my team of the week every week, it seems like. Carlton's Sam Walsh. 26 disposals, 3 goals, 2 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 6 score involvements, 3 marks, 3 clearances, 4 tackles, and 337 meters gained. The silent but deadly midfielder for the Geelong Cats, Cameron Guthrie. 29 disposals, 2 goals, a behind, 5 intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 6 marks, 5 clearances, 4 tackles, and 248 meters gained. Again, Hawthorn plays well. I gotta find a way to get Hawthorn a midfielder in, but a little different than normal. Hawthorn's Chad Wingard. 32 disposals, 2 goals, 2 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 9 score involvements, 7 marks, 4 clearances, 7 tackles, and 403 meters gained. Again, I said this was one of the best games of the round, so I gotta give some love here. Essendon's Zach Merritt. 35 disposals, 2 goals, 4 intercept possessions, 4 goal assists, 13 score involvements, 7 marks, 3 clearances, 5 tackles, and 624 meters gained. Rounding out the mids, I got to give him a little bit of love. Sydney's Luke Parker. 26 disposals, 2 goals, 7 score involvements, 5 marks, 9 clearances, 4 tackles, and 298 meters gained. We jump to the forwards, and again, a lot of goals being kicked by some of these forwards here. We jump right into it. Forwards, Carlton's Harry Mackay. 11 disposals, 5 goals, 2 behinds, 8 score involvements, 7 marks, and 282 meters gained. Port's Charlie Dixon, 12 disposals, 4 goals, 2 behinds, goal assist, 8 score involvements, 5 marks, 2 clearances, and 2 tackles. Melbourne's Luke Jackson, 17 disposals, 4 goals, 8 score involvements, and 3 marks. Also, Melbourne's Ben Brown, 12 disposals, 4 goals of behind, 7 score involvements, 6 marks, 2 tackles, and 233 meters gained. Brisbane's Daniel McStay, 16 disposals, 4 goals, 7 score involvements, 8 marks, and 2 tackles. Rounding out the startings, I had to give my little man a little bit of love. Sydney's Tom Papley, 17 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 9 score involvements, and 3 marks. We jump to the bench, and our ruck is not Brody Grundy. It is
Oh,
St.
two
Kilda's
big
Rowan
changes.
Marshall.
Love it.
22 disposals, a goal, a behind, 2 intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 46 hitouts, and 267 meters gained. The defender is Brisbane's Daniel Rich, 32 disposals, 10 intercept possessions, 3 score involvements, 9 marks, and 697 meters gained. No Melbourne fans, I didn't ignore him. On my bench, midfielder Melbourne Christian Petrarca, 32 disposals, a goal, 3 intercept possessions, 2 goal assists, 15 score involvements, 10 marks, 6 clearances, 5 tackles, and 527 meters gained. Rounding out the list, forward St. Kilda, Max King. 10 disposals, 4 goals, 6 score involvements, 3 marks, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is my team of the week for round 20.
Love it. I love the couple surprises there. We don't really see too much movement at that ruck position, so I like how we got a little threw us off a little bit.
Grundy had a good game. He didn't make the scoreboard impact that Gone and Marshall did, and I think both of them put up enough stats that I think they really had a good argument. I sat there as I looked at my notes, and I had Grundy, Gone, and Rowan Marshall as my 3 left, and I needed 2, and I went, well, Gon's gonna. It's so hard. Gon has that great goal. He kicks 2 goals, so it was really hard for me to hold him out of the starting spot. But then it was Marshall's 22 disposals and a lot of impact on the field, along with 46 hitouts, and Brody Grundy's 22 disposals, but only a behind kick, not as many score involvements. So it was very difficult to hold Brody out, but I had to get a little bit of love to Rowan Marshall in this one. So. A little bit of a flip up, but I have a feeling I don't think Brody's going to be complaining too much, because I think he's still got a couple more rounds to jump right back in there again.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to eventually once finals are done, the team of the year. So it's gonna be a lot of anticipation to that. It's gonna be a fun one to see.
That one's going to be basically my Brownlow, so that'll basically be my All Australian team. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's gonna be a fun one to see. Take your guesses at who's going to take home the title of Ruck. I think it's almost obvious at this point, unless we get a late contender. Guess we'll just have to see. But let's just about done. So we got our power rankings and our tipping to go to now, Donnie. And got to see. Actually, I haven't for once I've been able to see yours before we get to make the graphics, which is what I usually do after I make mine. So. I'm not sure if we actually had the same 5 teams for once. So I'm going to go through mine and see if we do, because I have a bit of a change up here. The same bottom 2 teams is last one for me, with 5 being the Melbourne Demons and 4 being the Port Adelaide Power. I still like Melbourne, and they obviously had a solid bounce back when they deserve. I kept them there. Not sure if they are able to top Port, because I have a little bit more confidence recently with Port, but they're neck and neck there. I got the Doggies at 3 still. And then, after this round, I was actually really tempted to throw the Doggies at 2, but I still have them 3. Geelong gets bumped to 2. The Sydney Swans are on the top of my power rankings. I love this team, Donnie. I love them preseason. I love them during the season. And I still love them. Honestly, they're the hottest team in the AFL right now. And they're looking like legit flag contenders if they haven't already. So I got them there, especially after just one hell of a game. Geelong can't really say the same for their play.
Well, sir, we have the same 5 teams, just a tiny bit different order.
Oh, like usual.
Like usual, Melbourne at 5, but I'm going to tell everybody this. Quite honestly, I sat for probably a good 5 minutes. I almost had a different number 5 team, and most people would have lost their minds if I would have done it. I legitimately almost put Carlton at 5 because they've won 3 of their last 5,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually better than Melbourne since Melbourne has the draw in that particular time period.
Yeah.
But because of the ugly win over North Melbourne, I couldn't pull the trigger on that. But I'm going to out myself there.
I love
For
that.
about a 5-minute
I
stretch, I
love that.
almost had Carlton at 5. I have Port at 4, like you. Port is 4 out of their last 5, playing really well. I still have Sydney at 3 just because the Doggies and Geelong both won. I hate bumping teams when they lose. Yes, Geelong played a tough game, but again, I'm looking at what North Melbourne is doing. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really downgrade Geelong for playing a team that's played a lot of teams really tough and has beaten some good teams as well. Bulldogs 2, Geelong 1, same 5 as last week, except like I said, Melbourne jumped back in. Brisbane is out because of their abysmal record. So Geelong 1, Bulldogs 2, Sydney 3, Port and Melbourne rounding out my top 5. So same 5 teams,
Mm-hmm.
few differences there. I
I
like
like that.
Sydney. I think if the Doggies have any kind of an issue this week or somehow drop one to Essendon, I
Mm-hmm.
think Sydney can jump up as long as they don't get nipped by St. Kilda. But the top 4 are so good right now. 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. I like
And
that.
then just all heck breaks loose after that.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a reason we don't extend this out to 10. It'd be a ginormous pain in the
He'd
ass.
be splitting hairs so
Oh,
bad.
we'd be having a nuclear explosion because we'd be cutting atoms at that point. It just almost isn't worth it, quite frankly.
It feels like it.
Right? But let's cap things off, Donnie. Let's roll. Round 21 tipping. Let's see. I actually had a decent week last round, so I was happy with that. And so let's see if we could keep things up in this round. So we're going to start things off with Geelong and the GWS Giants GMHBA Stadium in Victoria. And this has all the makings of a very long Friday night for me and the rest of GWS supporters. But there's also a chance that we could see them make a little bit of a surprise. Maybe Toby Green gets his butt into gear and sees a lot better in his second game back from those couple of games that he missed due to all those, I guess, rules and standards that we have going on. And Geelong, if they get off to a slow start here, GWS might be able to punch them in the mouth. Who knows how this game can go, but I will tip Geelong.
I'm going to tip Geelong on this one. They're at home. And they always play really well at home. There's some rumors that Jeremy Cameron might be back.
Ooh, even
I'm
worse for
trying. I'm
GWS.
looking those up. I know I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, but I know one of the latest ones on at least the AFL.com says that he's been training really well. So there's a chance. There is a chance that good old Jeremy Cameron might be greeting his old side this weekend. I'm not going to hold my breath, but we'll have to see. But even if he doesn't, I just think the loss of Hopper, I think really hurts. I think Geelong's playing really well. They always play GMHBA. I'm gonna get that right. They always play it really well. It's a ground that really suits their style. I think Geelong just has just a tiny bit too much for the Giants in this one, so I will take the Cats in that game down at GMHBA.
And then the next game that we got going on is one where I might have tipped Gold Coast a few rounds ago, but if looking at recent stuff, there's no way I can. I got Carlton all the way in this one. Although the Suns might be able to put up a way better performance than they did in round 20, I still like Carlton in this one, but ultimately it depends on what Carlton we get. That's always a toss-up.
As a tipper, this game terrifies me because this is the game. As soon as I think I should have no problem tipping Carlton, this is the game that literally Carlton could literally have just the total brain fade, and Gold Coast beats them. So this is the one that terrifies me as a tipper because
Mm-hmm.
the way this season has gone, this is the game. I tip Carlton. I think Carlton's got more talent. Carlton played so much better last round. They've got a lot of momentum. This is the game for some weird reason. No matter what way I think, the tip is always wrong and always goes the opposite way.
Yep.
I'm going to tip Carlton, but This is my keep an eye on. This is my keep an eye on game because Stewie Doo always sometimes pulls a trick out of his hat sometimes, so it wouldn't shock me. I'm gonna tip Carlson, but I'm giving Gold Coast a sniff in this one.
That's a tough one, right? Ooh, I wonder if you'll like this tip, Donnie. Next game, going to the Saturday slate. Richmond and North Melbourne, even at the MCG. Give me the ruse. Give me the ruse to put the nail in the coffin for the Richmond Tigers. I just think that'd be the funniest damn thing ever. Twitter would explode, and I will be smiling the whole time if this goes down.
You ready for this?
Yes, please.
Same thing.
Oh, I love it.
I tip in the Roos. I love the way the Roos are playing. They played Geelong really, really tough. I'm just not that convinced that Richmond has turned the corner. I think Richmond played a good game, but they can't lose that game to Freo if they want to get into the finals. All due respect to Freo fans. I really love your team. That should have been a win by Richmond. They just did not play well. Again, the travel will be interesting to see how it goes. Yes, it's at the MCG, but the MCG has not been the happy hunting ground that it has been previously. I love what Noble is doing. I'm just feeling this one. I know this is probably the one that I completely whiff on. Richmond wins this by 40 at the pace it's going, but I'm gonna put my foot down on this one. I'm gonna tip the North Melbourne Roos on this one.
Oh, and that'd be a whole lot of fun. Got to stay off the Twitter for a couple days because that thing would turn into a bit of a cesspool from these Tig supporters. Oh boy, I hope we didn't offend them because we got a couple that watch. At least comment. I do love you guys, but it's always a little fun. I mean, come on, let's throw a little bit of shade. You guys won a couple flags. You guys could handle this, I think.
Tipping is not personal. Tipping is never personal.
Just business.
It's fun. I enjoy it. It just lets you have a little bit of fun with it.
Oh, you bet. And now with this next game, we get the battle. I'm sorry. Is this the showdown?
Showdown, yep.
Yes, you got that. I sometimes get the showdown, the derbies confused, but I got it on this one again. I learned from earlier in the season. But in the showdown, part 2 on the year, I got to tip Port Adelaide on this one. Unless Taylor Walker, which he does have the ability to, unless he kicks 6 goals, I don't really see Adelaide offense be able to do much against Port in this one.
I have Port and some good news that I'm reading. It sounds like there will be a crowd in Adelaide for this game. 15,000 will be able to be at the showdown, which is absolutely awesome. This is one of the more underrated rivalries of the AFL. Maybe again, Victoria again kind of dominates a lot of the rivalries because of the history, but this is a heated rivalry. I'm gonna tip Port, but I'm giving Adelaide a sniff just because this rivalry always brings out the best. Rivalry games always bring out the best in your game. I think Adelaide will play a much tougher game than I think a lot of people expect. I'm going to tip Port, but I'm giving Adelaide a sniff in this one. Another one of those. It will not shock me if Adelaide pulls a screamer on this one.
I mean, Adelaide always has a chance to do that. They pull off these upsets at the most random times too, so you really never know in the game with them. And the St. Kilda Sydney game was one of these games where, 3 rounds ago, this was a way different tip and it's way harder for me. But given St. Kilda recently, they've been just almost collapsing. Sydney has been surging into the finals. I like Sydney, and I like them by a few goals in this one.
This is a tough one for me because the first game up in the SCG was so close. Mm-hmm. If Sydney kicks, if St. Kilda kicks straight, St. Kilda wins that game, which I think could potentially trajectory Sydney's season a tiny bit differently. I really wish I knew if Paddy Ryder was going to play because Hickey didn't do too bad against the pair, but he only had to face Ryder the first time. Marshall will be playing in this one, so I'm very interested to see how Hickey handles that one. It will bring a little bit of a difference. I agree the Swans are playing really, really well right now. I think they've got just a tiny bit too much firepower, but this is another one of those terrifying games because this is a St. Kilda team that they need to win. They're going to come out absolutely on fire. Sydney, the last several games, has fallen behind early. Can they do it again? Will one time be too many of falling behind early and coming roaring back? Gonna tip the Swans. this one scares me a tiny bit though.
Yeah, this could be a trap game. This is something that you definitely don't want to overlook if you are Sydney. And honestly, I think this next game is the hardest game for me to tip this round because we got Hawthorn and we got Collingwood, and both these teams could play really well and exceed expectations, but they also have the ability to play really poorly and to almost exceed expectations in the negative light. But especially the two games that these teams had last round, they're looking good going to this one. I'll take the Hawks, but purely because it's going to be up in Tassie. That's really the only thing I have to go off of here. It's a tough one to tip.
Yeah, the Tassie location does concern me a tiny bit, but I think Collingwood just has a tiny bit too much talent in the midfield where the Hawthorn is a little
Mm.
bit weaker. I'm liking Elliott and Myachek, and Cox has kind of come in and hasn't played too badly. Cameron has really kind of embraced the secondary ruck role. I like how Carlton is playing. I think Harvey has really opened up their game. I know it's in Tassie, but I'm gonna tip the Pies on this one. I I, I can't pinpoint the reason that I have this feeling that Collingwood, they don't go down to Tassie very often. So when
Mm-hmm.
they do, there are Collingwood. I think this one could be quite an interesting to see how the fan base turns out. Does Collingwood come out with a ton of Tassie Collingwood supporters that are just have not had the chance to see their team play on the island?
Yeah, isn't it's gonna be an interesting one. This is one of those games that could actually end up being really good and maybe one of the better ones in the round. So I'm actually really looking forward to this game here. And now this next one, you get the Western Bulldogs and the Essendon Dons, and the Dons are essentially fighting for their finals lives at this point of the season. And I'm interested. I would love this game as a underdog tip. I think this is one of the better ones to do this round. Maybe depending on what the odds end up being for Fremantle and Brisbane, we could see there. I would love to tip Essendon. I just like the doggies style of plays too much right now, especially coming off a huge offensive performance against Gold Coast. A lot of momentum going to this one. Essendon, though, just had a really good game against Sydney. This is a tough one to tip. I'm going to go with the doggies, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Essendon pulls this one off.
Tipping the doggies. This is a very intriguing. This is potentially match of the round again. Essendon
Mm-hmm.
again. Their high flying style. I think it matches. I think it matches up not too bad with the Western Bulldogs. Jake Stringer is playing lights out footy right now. I'm really interested to see what adjustments that Essendon will make when it comes to rotation issues that they had the last time, how they handle this doggies team and their run and gun style. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. I tip the doggies, but I agree with you. I like this as an upset tip. For some weird reason, I just Essendon has that it factor this year that you never want to count them out.
Mm-hmm. And the next game, second to last one of the round, is going to be Fremantle and the Brisbane Lions. And then going back to kind of my looking and kind of previewing what the top eight's going to look like. This was a pivotal game for the Dockers, and I think they're going to get it done against the Brisbane Lions. Being at Optus and with the Lions just hardly being able to put anything good together for long enough without Hipwood, I think the Fremantle could take advantage of this one, and this could be the game that might secure their spot in the finals.
I'm with you. I have Frio. Optus Stadium has been really really good to Frio this year. They've played really really well. They have another team that a lot of people are going to go. You're probably not going to win this game. You're probably and they just play better when they have this underdog role. Brayshaw and Sarong have played really really well. Same with Chera. Luke Ryan was an absolute stud in the back for Frio. I like Taverner playing well. It stinks that they don't have Lob. I think Lob would really, really come in handy this week with an undersized defensive line. But we'll really have to see. But I'm feeling Frio on this one. I really am.
Yeah. Oh boy, Frio fans, we got some positivity for you. Hopefully, it's not false hope And then the last game of the round is also going to be at Optus. Optus is going to be busy the last couple of days. The West Coast Eagles and the Melbourne Demons. And this game could very well be the nail in the coffin for West Coast, especially. I think there's a very good chance that they just get manhandled in this one, just ran over by this Melbourne Demons team. It could be a close game if West Coast pulls it off, but if not, it could be very ugly. It could get ugly very, very quickly in this one. I'm going Demons all the way.
I'm going to tip the Demons, and the funny thing is for Frio fans, I'm very interested to see what they think about this, because if this does happen, if Melbourne wins this game, it does literally give Frio the chance to end their streak of losing to the West Coast Eagles. Not only if they win that one, but ending that streak, but also potentially ending the chances of the Eagles going to the finals. So this is absolutely critical. West Coast does not drop this, but the way Melbourne played, they have a ton of confidence. Yes, they're going cross-stent. Yes, they lose Viney due to the ugly incident that happened at the tribunal. He's out for 2 weeks. But Melbourne they've just been able to, every time they've had a loss, they've been able to absorb it and actually progress from it. I'm going to tip the D's in this one, but this is always the one that scares me, because Perth, West Coast at home, there's always something different the way they play. And Melbourne, Optus has been a little bit of a boogie place for them. They've not played well in this new Optus Stadium since it's opened. We'll have to see. I'm tipping the D's, but as a tipper, I'm a little worried on this one, because this one I'm just not sure what Eagles team is going to show up in this one.
Honestly, it's bad to be a tipper this round. Bad to be a tipper this season. At least with half of these games, it's a toss-up almost. It's almost close to a coin flip, but I guess that's what makes it fun. Either we look great with these tips, or we just look awful. It's boom or bust. But that's where a lot of the fun comes in. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's AFL breakdown. Round 20 is officially in the books. As soon as we cover it, that's what makes it official, obviously. 3 more rounds to go. A lot of real interesting matchups to go through here. So, Donnie, I mean, let's just, in one word or phrase, just your thoughts on these last 3 rounds of the AFL season.
Oh man, exhilarating, because it is going to be absolutely exhilarating seeing some of these games, the way they turn out, because there is no arguing that every single game between teams between 7 to 13 are going to have massive impacts, win or lose or even draw. It is going to be absolutely insane to watch the center of this table adjust, and I can almost guarantee you most of these coverages they're going to start going to live ladders every time in the fourth quarter a goal is scored, because it is going to matter. That it could quite potentially matter that
that's not
much.
Exaggeration.
No, I'm not.
Oh, I love every goal matters. That's the kind of football that I want to see. That's the kind of football that any fan wants to see, unless those goals are the ones kicking your team down the ladder. Obviously, then you're not going to be too happy with those. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much once again for tuning in to this episode. We really do love all of your support. Really do cherish it. And because you guys are just, I mean, put it frankly, you're just the damn best, man. You're just the damn best. And you are the best fans anywhere. And do appreciate your support, whether you're here in the States or our friends all the way over across the Pacific Ocean there in Australia. But we're going to enjoy a crazy round 21. A lot of final spots on the line. And ladies and gentlemen, the ladder is probably going to look way different in a week from now. And so I can't wait to join you all. Hope to see you all next week. And we'll catch you after round 21 of the AFL season.